Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and I'm here in my crafting lair. It's a chilly Tuesday night here in Michigan. Schools are closed. Just found out that for the first time in the 3 years I've worked there, my office is closed tomorrow. So I thought, what the heck? I'm going to do a live crafting stream, and I'm going to put some ambient sounds in the background here. So those of you that are already in the chat, if somebody could let me know if the background sounds seem a little too loud. We're going a little bit of a quiet corner by the fire in a friendly tavern while we work on for a couple hours. I usually do these for a couple hours. I see I forgot to change the guild artisan here. I'm actually moving away from that name. We're going to be going with just live crafting or imagine build play for these going in the future. So, oh, you know what? Let me see if I can fix that. It says, Jeremy says I'm not in stereo. I forgot on this setup to fix that. I think I can do it without disrupting anything. Let me see. I'm going to down mix the mic to mono. All right. Did that fix it? Mr. Jeremy. God, I hope it did. All right, so it is coming through on both. Yeah, it's the new microphone that I got. This AT2020 is a mono microphone, and you have to be sure to down mix it. So excellent. Thank you for letting me know that. I appreciate that. So also let me know if the pub sounds and all that, if they're too loud or whatever. If they're quiet, that's fine. I just don't want them to be disruptive. Prupra! I have not seen you in so long, and it was on these crafting streams where I used to see you all the time. So all right, so without further ado, I'm actually I decided that this particular build is going to be exclusively 100% on stream. So I need to make sure I'll probably be doing a lot more of these. Ideally I would do these for a little bit longer on Saturdays, and wherever I can squeeze them in. Every other Tuesday kind of works. Every other Tuesday, I'm over on the Dice on Ice channel playing in Curse of Strahd. But what I'm going to be doing now is what I'm calling the Dice Tower of Mezroll. I drew this up right around the time Tomb of Annihilation came out. I don't have any digital pictures of it, but here's the general idea. If you can see a few post-it notes. I'm going to switch over. You should be able to see this in the overhead as we go to the new main overlay. And there we go. So, hopefully that's not too distant for you. I can drop the camera down, but if I do that, then the camera is like right here in my face on the inset. Anyway, so the idea of this dice tower, as I planned it out, is it's going to be themed like a Mesoamerican kind of a tomb, and it's going to have a typical where you drop your dice down in the top, and they're going to come out. But as you can see here, I've kind of drawn this little devil face. I actually had a friend of mine from the Tabletop Crafters Guild who 3D printed this amazing devil face that I got off of Thingiverse, I believe. And this is actually where the dice are going to come out on this tower. So I've kind of planned out here. You can see here where I made a note, this needs to stick out less. I don't want this thing to be too huge on the table. And here's where I'm going to be looking at what I'll actually be doing for the kind of tower pyramid style that comes around. But here's the thing that's really fun about this dice tower that I'm really excited about. is the dice field itself. Right now I'm currently looking at it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That seems a bit big. I might knock that off by 2, make it 6 by 4. And I've got this area highlighted here. I came up with this idea. It's why I came up with this tower, really. The idea is that when the dice spill out here, sometimes dice drop right in the immediate area. These dice are actually going to be falling from a height of about an inch, inch and a quarter. So they're going to probably land about here. Some of them may bounce over here, but if they hit this 2 by 2 section, they're actually going to trip a counterweighted trapdoor, and they'll roll down into a secondary. I'm gonna make it look almost like it's a kind of swampy pond area, and that'll be filled with resin. It won't change anything other than maybe if your dice starts to slow down and you think it's going to be a 20 or that 1, and then it continues on down the way, it'll fall through. So that's going to be the real trick of this build. I think I have it figured out, but if you can see from the diagram here, I've only got about 2 inches to play with to counterweight this trap door. The mechanism is going to be pretty simple. I've got a variety of plastic tubing, some of which fits inside each other. So what I'm looking at doing is I'm going to have a very simple, we're going to create a very simple hinge mechanism that'll be glued to the inside so that this sits flush. And then I'm going to use a couple pieces of wood that extend out about 1/4 inch that are just what allows it to snap back into place without coming up too high to pass its 0 point. So yeah, that's the overall idea behind this build. So right before the stream, I decided that I would kind of plan out the box structure, and that's probably what we're going to be doing some of tonight. I may actually, I've been really hesitant to do this. I need to drill out the mouth on this thing. I know it's very difficult to see. You can see where I'm drawing my pencil marks. But I'm going to be using a Dremel tool and kind of cutting in. And I want this to be open as much as possible. This is really unusual for a dice tower that I've done. That it actually does have a really small opening. But most of your standard dice, like here's a standard D20. Nope, that's a D10. You can see it fits in there nicely. Here's one of the smaller size D20s, my Atcon D20. So the idea is that the this part of the tower, where this last baffle is, this last ramp, I've figured it out so that it's going to be at the bottom edge here. So we're actually going to have to do some clever, so if we look at it from the top view, just a rough sketch, and where you have the devil head here, I'm actually going to have to create kind of a funnel system with this. And I've done this with a couple other towers where there's no catch point. So the dice have to come outside of this mouth. So that's where it's going to be a little bit tricky. There is a, oh, I see where, yeah, Tamiko said, if it fits through, it should be fine if your slope is angled enough. Yeah, I've got, I'm not sure what angle. I don't have my protractor handy to measure the angle, but this is approximately a 45-degree angle right here, which is more than enough to give the dice the momentum as they're going to come down here and here and then here. I like to have 3 baffles, 3 ramps. So I'm just going to, even if this ends up being the prototype, I want to start building the actual core of this with the thought that it's going to be what we actually use as the core. But I'm thinking I might, because what I'm really keen to try out is this this trap door, and see if I can get it counterweighted appropriately. So I don't know, there's a couple of you in the chat. Would you rather see the actual tower part itself? Because I think I'm going to build it in 2 pieces, the base and then the tower that'll sit on top of that. So do you want to see how I put together the base and the time that we'll put into the ramps and all that stuff? Or we might actually have time to do both now that I think about it. Yeah. Momentum. Nice. Yeah, Jeremy runs a Whispers and Fragments game in his Momentum setting that I play in once a month over on Erasmus Expeditions. All right, so let me look at this. Well, I've got I was calling for 8 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 8 inches here. So if the dice are coming out roughly like this, whoops. Yeah, that might not be enough. Well, it's gonna. That's not even the right surface. Let me see on the paper. As we get a sense for, really hard to tell because it's not dropping from the proper height. I definitely think it needs to go down to 6 inches though. I think if we give it 8 inches, it's gonna be too much. Dodging jokes left and right about 8 inches. All right, let's see. So this is gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 4 plus the 3 inches for the tower. Let's see how 3 inches. Gosh, just sidestep all of the size things when I say things like, let's see how 3 inches feels. If I'm making the jokes, you're not going to get banned, Nathan. So what I have here, and this is one of my favorite things. I work at a publishing company, and the people in production, when we get new books in, they just bring me cardboard. So I have all kinds of this roughly 8 by 10 cardboard, corrugated cardboard. It's really good stuff. So we're gonna take a look at this here real quick. I need to see that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 by 3. We're gonna cut 4 of those and just see how the size of the tower feels. I made one not too long ago where it felt a little too big. So what I'm gonna do is some very simple. Let's see. Let's just see how big our sheet is here. 10.5 by 8. So I can definitely get. I can definitely get 2 sides out of one of these sheets. So we're just going to go ahead and mark at 3 and at 6. I make very small marks in pencil. I do have actually there it is. For this kind of thing, I like to have a square. It just helps to line everything up a little more square. Hence the name. Shoe. Yeah, sort of. Guess that's assuming that the edge of the cardboard is square. You know what? I'm not entirely sure on that, so do what I was doing. We'll take our pencil edge, ruler up. So be careful with this cardboard. Sometimes I make these marks so light that they blend in with the rest of the cardboard. I keep stopping and look at the chat. My last tower is too big, maybe. Like the tower is great, but makes it take up too much room. Yeah, you really got to think about if this is a kind of dice tower that you plan on using at a table all the time. You got to think about how, you know, are you playing at a table with other people, or is it something like me where I'm on stream, that not a lot of people are going to see it per se. You know, how big is too big? All right, so tower itself is, I got this metal ruler. I love these metal rulers, but this particular one that I got, Darice, I think I might have picked it up at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. It's got this ridiculous little 1/8 inch space at the end. I don't know why they didn't start the measurements. I guess maybe it's more precise this way, but you just got to be careful, because if you forget about that, and you try to line up with the edge of the ruler, with the edge of the what you're cutting, you can end up with being off by 1/16 of an inch, and that really screws everything up. So before I cut, I'm going to measure this other one. One thing I like to, all of this cardboard came from the same lot, so I know I'm getting similar quality, thickness, all that. Just another thing you want to keep in mind when you're coming up with these kind of builds. Something that a good friend of the channel, V from the Crafting Muse, who you've probably seen here quite frequently if you watch any of the streaming games that I run over on Twitch, and then I put the VODs up here on YouTube. The Crafting Muse posted today that she worked on a craft and it wasn't quite up to snuff for video tutorial, but it was a learning process. She learned a couple things, and she'll take another stab at it. And the real important thing from that is, you know, not everything comes out exactly the way you want it the first try. You just got to keep working at it. And, you know, case in point that I said in response to that was just yesterday, in thinking about what I was going to do for this live crafting stream, one of the other builds I want to do is a quick, cheap and easy dice trays. And I have a really solid concept, but I didn't properly account for some measurements. So after about 2 hours of building, everything was off. It wasn't square. The bottom wouldn't fit in properly. And it was really frustrating. So I wound up scrapping the whole thing, just broke it into pieces and threw it away. But it wasn't so, okay, it was a little bit out of frustration. But I had this idea that I'm going to teach you guys how to do when I do show that tutorial. This idea for how to make the edges kind of blend together without looking out of place. So let's see. I'll dodge around Tamiko's 1/16 of an inch joke. Some fine day I want a dice tower that I can cooperate into my DM screen, and which can roll the dice to my side or the player side as I choose. I think that might be fun. I actually have a design for a commission for Connor and Megan at Dice on Ice that is a two-way dice tower. Very stylish, or stylized, I should say. Have you all ever checked out carpenter rulers? Odds are they start true at the edge because they probably need to have necessity of the craft. Interesting. All right, let's see. So what I've done here now is mark that to my 6-inch height. And if you notice, I put these little X's, even though they're different size. A lot of times, just in case I have to set it aside and come back to it later, I want to make sure that I know for sure which one is the good piece and which is the scrap piece. So I'm going to use... I have a variety of blades for cutting stuff. I like this one for the cutting of the cardboard. It's a little bit thicker. Might still have to take a couple passes, but I use this is the main reason why I like my metal rulers. Flip that out of the way. Yeah. Now I know sometimes you might be tempted to say, hey, can you make that a little bit quicker, save yourself some cuts by stacking these pieces and just going with that? And yeah, you could do that, but there's always the possibility that your pieces are going to slide. So if I try to cut through here and it's off, I've screwed everything up. And I know this from experience. Sometimes you get going a little too quick and things can get out of alignment. So I like to double check that everything is lined up before I actually make my cut. The old adage, measure twice, cut once. I will be surprised if you don't see me make some screw-ups in my cutting. All right, now I'm actually kind of digging this. At first glance, this seems like, whoa, that's a really small dice tower. But keep in mind, this is the core. It's also going to be sitting up 2 inches, so I'm looking at an 8-inch height. And it's going to have, it's going to come out about, well, let's look at the drawing. Because I modified it from the original. I didn't want it to stick out too much. It looks like at its peak, I've got it coming out about another inch on the sides for the cladding that'll make it look like this sort of ancient tower, which of course is what's going to cover up a lot of these seams and stuff. I might actually go with a front to back. Yeah, we'll see. We cut these other pieces and then we can actually, these will probably, because they're cut to the same size, these ones I marked as X's will be perfect for cutting our baffles, what I call them, the ramps. So we're gonna cut the, ow, I just bumped my finger against my hot glue gun. Thanks for stopping by, Cameron Desert King. Good to see you. Mini bandsaw or scroll saw is pretty nice for thick XPS. I can't cut 90 degrees to save my life, and I'm not a huge fan of hot wires. I have a hot wire Proxon cutter, a Proxon hot wire cutter actually, that you will see in action when we get into the actual foam portions of this build in a later stream. I love my Proxon. I have yet to get any of the accessories from Shifting Lands. But I get to see them firsthand in the not too distant future. A friend of mine has been watching Black Magic Craft and DM Scotty and my own videos and wants to start doing crafting. So he got himself a Proxon and the necessary tools. And he just ordered the brand new, this massive shape cutter jig. That can cut like onion style domes for buildings, blimp shapes. It's just incredible. And he's invited me to come check it out when he gets it. So it's a pretty pricey commitment though. You're looking at about I think you're looking at about $30 or $40 in shipping from Germany, plus the $90 price tag. So not cheap, but all right, let me move this out of the way. So just like that, we've got 4 pieces. Nick Gray, hey Jake, my group is currently at the table fighting some dark elves. Wish I had a dice tower. My rolls are suffering tonight. If you're at the table, man, why are you here? You're supposed to be playing. See, Nathan, I have a scroll saw that was given to me, and I still haven't figured out how to use it. It's not very good with that kind of stuff. Okay, so one of the ways I like to put these together is with a method that probably has a name, but I don't know what it is. And it's basically just alternating corners. There's that subtle overlap. So you still end up with the square. But I'm kind of tempted to do it slightly off square and have it'll actually end up being like 3 1/4 inches long, probably. Having it be like this. I know it's a small thing, but it has to do with just getting everything lined up properly. And the reason I'm kind of finicking with this is that I have to know. I guess I don't. If it goes right to the edge, it's going to be the edge either way. No, that's right, because if I do this, yep, I'm going to do this. I got it. I'm going to do it this way. So what I need to do is identify my pieces. So this is going to be front. And I'm going to mark these left and right as you're looking at the tower with the tray coming towards you. So this will be right, back, left. That'll just help me to keep it straight, because I'm going to use the right piece as we figure out roughly how we're going to do this. This is the part where it gets a little wonky because I'm terrible at math. When it comes to trying to figure out angles and stuff. So one thing I'm going to do here is, should only need this on a couple pieces, but I'm basically just marking the center line, and there's a reason for that. It has to do with these baffle pieces and where I want them to fall. Because you don't want them to go too far past and intersect with the angle too close, or the dice aren't going to have room to bounce down through the tray. So, with that in mind, I try to hit roughly 45-degree angles. I already know that our known factor, oh, see, I like this. Just lining it up until the other side touches. Our known factor is that this is the proper width. Wait a minute. You got to think about this. Because I said this is the proper width, but it's actually going to be too wide. If I go with this method of attaching it. So you got to think about this stuff. So that's 3 inches, but if I go like this, then I've got an extra width there. We can fix that, but it's just something you got to think about. We're going to lose whatever the thickness of 2 of these is. All right, we'll deal with that in a minute. So I'm going to... I'm just making this up as I go, guys. You kind of see how my mind works. And then I'm going to get the other one, do the same thing. What I'm doing is I'm just putting it from the corner until it gets to the edge there, and I'm just marking where that center line is. And then I'm going to connect the dots. see if we line this up. Good. Checking for squareness. Okay, so got through there. Now check this out. Didn't quite cut it. Actually, I wound up almost cutting that completely in half. So, interesting. So for the first two baffles, it's literally going to be this. And then I've got the second baffle at 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2. So 1.5 inches down, which would be here. So let's just see how that lines up. So if the first one goes like this, then the second one, now see, this is why I like to test fit these. You can probably see the problem here is there's just not enough room for the dice to move through. If I move it too far down, I'm gonna have to cut a little bit. Yeah, that's just too close for my comfort. If I cut it off. Let me see what I have on here. Does this one seem to have enough clearance? So if we go an inch down, yeah, my original design had, we're going to do this. Sorry, I'm at that point where I'm just making stuff up as I go. Wanted to cut roughly 1/2 inch off of each of these. And I know that this ruler is 1/2 inch. Two. Up. No, I did not just almost cut my finger. I did. I totally just almost cut my finger. Jeremy's, it looks like you're heading off to a game. Good luck, my friend. Alright, so here, with the new, we cut 1/2 inch off. Change the angle slightly. And then, see, I feel better about this one. Definitely feel better about this one. Let me see where the second one is supposed to intersect. At 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2. Roughly 2.5 inches. Now keep in mind that these are generally not going to be seen, but I still like to make sure everything looks pretty good on the inside. Something I don't have, got to pick up more of, I don't think I have any more of it right now, is I use an adhesive foam. It's very thin, a couple millimeters, that I get at the craft store to line all of these interior baffles. It helps to keep the cardboard from taking too much of a hit with all the dice rolls, and makes it more durable. So right now what I'm looking at is, again, looking at these angles. Now that fails to make sense. One thing that's really important to me is that these do not, there's no way for dice to get caught in here. All right, so I'm gonna do this. I'm liking this. We're gonna call this upper. This one is middle. I'm really not liking, I guess that's okay. Did I do that at 2 inches and not 2 1/4? Or 2 1/2, that's what it was. See, double check your measurements. Checking my real quick. All right, a drink. This stream is not brought to you by LaCroix. So yeah, see, that's where I was not happy with that. So yeah, I'm liking the way this looks, like this. We end up with this one here, this one here. Looking pretty good. I think even if you dump a couple D6s down there, that's gonna be good to go. So all right. That's right. I am hot gluing. I guess I should have. Put a thick bead in there, and then I like to do this thing I call hot glue stitching. Just kind of spreading it across. And sure, once that dries a little bit, cools and dries down, cools down and dries a little bit, I will nice thing about hot glue, cures really fast. Let's see, I'm trying to catch up with the chat. I sketch it out, then carefully planned out drawing quickly turns into a rough guide, pretty much. I prefer to pound coffee while I craft, so as not. So when it gets to painting, I have the shakes. Yeah. What do you mean, where's our roaring fire? Can't hear the fire? Or am I missing something? Okay, so that's setting up pretty good. You can kind of see the stitching lines a little bit there. I'm actually going to reinforce that a little bit more. Somebody in the chat said L brackets. You're not wrong. Keep in mind, I mean, these things are going to be taking a pounding from dice, lots of dice, so I want those joints to be really strong. Can you guys not hear the sound effects? Oh my gosh, I never unmuted. So I love this, that we're, what, 45 minutes into the stream and you're just now telling me there's no sound effects. You guys are on top of it. Finger guns. I've been hearing the sound effects this entire time. I'm just saying. You should hear sound effects now. Jeremy, I require at least 3/4 listening. Okay. Now we've got the middle one. I think this is going to end up being kind of like a proof of concept piece. I don't know if it'll be the final piece or not. It could be. It could be. I have to pick up. I'll have to look after the stream and see if I have, or take a break or something. I gotta check in one of these drawers and see if I have any more of the adhesive foam. Go ahead and attach piece. In case anybody's curious, my hot glue gun is a AdTech 2-temperature gun that I picked up at Walmart. It's my second one that I've gotten. The last one developed a leak, and more glue was going into the body than coming out the nozzle. But I picked this up at Walmart for $10. DM Scotty has a really good recommendation for a glue gun, but I haven't actually picked up one of those just yet. Yes, I'm pretty happy with this one. Like the 2-temperature. If I need it to stay warm, I can drop it down to cool and let it stay relatively warm instead of cooling down all the way. Gorilla makes some awesome hot glue. Honestly, Prue, I don't have any real recommendations. I just buy the AdTech glue sticks that come or are at Walmart near the gun. I haven't really had any problems with them. I get these longer ones. They're, I think, 8 or 10 inches. I just don't go through them as quick. I prefer to get those. I usually, before a really big project, will go out and make sure that I have plenty of glue sticks on hand. I know I have a handful in there, but I actually haven't done much hot glue crafting in a while. It feels good. Love the smell of hot glue. Non-toxic. So here's our 2 baffles. Now this next one is going to be really interesting because I can't really get the hole figured out until I get this. Because what I'm going to have to do, let this cure for a few minutes. Ultimately what I'm going to do is, let me see, I figured out where the chin, the bottom of the mouth is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 1/4 inches. So let's mark that out. Excuse me. I trust you all can hear the dulcet sounds of the tavern now. I'm gonna mark 1 1/4 on the front here. Do this. This is where the chin. I'm actually wondering now that I see. Oh yeah, that was this. I was gonna say that's too high. That is barely wide enough. That is crazy. We get to the foam part, have a little bit of extra leeway. That's something I hadn't thought about. The fact that this comes right up to the edges. Well, that's gonna be fine. How heavy is the demon head? It's super light. If you look at the back here, you can kind of see some of the lattice work on the 3D print. Ryan did some really good work with the STL files. I always meant to try to do a cheap silicone cast of this. But I think I'm gonna get with a friend who has a 3D printer and see if they can print me up a handful of these, because I'd like to be able to do some other stuff with them. As I said, this was a free file from Thingiverse, and I just gave Ryan the measurements. Castles Out of the Air says... Well, it shouldn't... Alright, hold on. I'm jumping around from thought to thought. Castles of the Air says it's very quiet, so you can barely hear the sound effects. Like I said, I don't want them to get in the way. I'll keep monitoring that. No, the weight wouldn't be an issue anyway, because it's going to be sitting here, but keep in mind you're going to have another 6 to 8 inches coming out in front of it. So this is actually going to be just a little bit left of center. No weight issues whatsoever. By the time we get all the glue and paint and everything on it, it's going to have a good weight to it without feeling overly heavy. And this, like my measurement, 1 1/4, but man, that looks crooked. Okay, so we know it's got to come to 1 1/4. So that means, yeah, that's 7 inches. Little offset, so I'm not going to do that. Do this. So it's important here to know where the bottom has to, where the mouth has to come out. Yeah, that's, what the heck? Measure twice, cut once. Not cutting, but I've said this many times, but one of the reasons I like worn builds, medieval type builds, is hi Prue. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully when I do the Saturday ones you'll be able to stick around for longer, but I know where you are, it's very late or early depending on your perspective. I forget what I was saying. Alright, so let's see, this is another one of the scrap pieces, and so for this one we know that it has to come out there. Now see, I'm a little worried about this. I don't want the angle to be too narrow or not steep enough for there to be momentum for the dice to come out of the mouth. I'm liking this. I'm gonna do, where'd my pencil go? Oh, it moved on. So we're looking at the 3/8. Dang it, I forgot I was going to have to cut those down. Might have to compensate and cut the front piece and back piece longer. I say 3 3/8. Yeah, Nathan, I know it can be difficult sometimes. There are a lot of us that are East Coast, but them's the way. That's, I don't know what I'm trying to say. That's just the way it is. Just the way it is, baby. The good thing is about live streaming on YouTube like this is once the live stream is done, the video's there and you can watch it at your leisure. But you just lose that element of being a part of the live stream. The unfortunate part. So I'm gonna go ahead again. As I said, this might end up just being the prototype, and the reason I'm saying that is, one, I forgot to check for making sure these were straight left to right. They were square to the... It's fine. Yes. But I've really got to figure out what the heck the what this part is going to be. Narrow it in. It's not the first time I've done it. I've done it before. Right. I need to know if the dice are gonna fit through. Well, like I said, this may be our prototype. Proof of concept for the tower. And then from there we can proof of concept the trapdoor, which is the part I'm really excited about. Excited about the whole thing. Love just taking an idea on paper and turning it into something real. This. Jake, you need some hat pins or something. You can test pin those puppies in the place before you glue. Yeah, I mean, I have pins, but I don't know, with the cardboard, they're not as secure. He said making excuses. I mean, I could tape them too, but with the glue, it's really... This is letting me do... I mean, it's not taking that long. Most of what's taking the time is me figuring it out. And then from there, once I have this proved out, all I have to do is take the new measurements, cut it out real quick, and I can reassemble it. Because, like I said, I got to make sure I have these pieces square up and down, and I got to make sure that, because I'm looking at this and they're just not square. I can also make sure that I'm getting the pieces coated with the foam stuff that needs to go on there. I could still do it from here, but yeah, really need to cut this out, but I just stuck my... I'm reluctant to do that on stream. I'm reluctant to do it on stream just because it's basically going to be me having to mute my microphone so you don't hear the Dremel tool. I'm not entirely sure because I've never cut into a 3D print like this. I wonder... I'm still going to do that with this one, but I'm wondering, I'm going to talk to my friend who does 3D printing. If they just modify the file and make this a hollow, then I wouldn't even have to worry about it. It would be all sealed up on the sides. Because that's what I'm worried about, is when I cut into it, when I have this exposed lattice work, that I'm going to have to fill with something. Probably a wood filler. Okay, well, that's curing nicely. So let's just do something here. It's a little funky, but that just doesn't make... I see you sending me inappropriate text messages, Dwight. I love it. Dwight is my good friend, the big bearded nerd. Alright, a large part of crafting is putting stuff together like this. Making micro adjustments and just thinking about it. Seeing if everything fits together the way you want it to. So I think what I'm gonna do is this. I'm going to just temporarily fit it together. We'll do it this way. There. Try to make it as close as possible. Where? Oh, that was fun. Way two. I just want to test out the let's make this go on the high side. And that's a hoop-de-doo. But let's just see. I will do this. I'll put it in my dice tray here. So everything seems to. I like to grab 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, close enough. I like to grab like fireball damage. I wish so bad I could get 2 or 3 inch XPS. Oh, now that I called you out, Dwight, I see you're in the chat. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with the chat. Alright, so anyway. I like to grab something like fireball damage. And when you roll a bunch of D6s through, that's usually your highest volume of dice. As I said, I also put foam padding in here, which really muffles the sound, so you don't have such a clattery. So I'm liking the way the 6s are going. Let's try roll for advantage. We're gonna roll for advantage, or with advantage. It's an 18. Now disadvantage. It's a 6. Let's do 1, 2. Let's do 3d8 of damage. We'll say this is going to be a lightning attack. That looks like we got a 9. Alright, let's do 1. really liking the way this is rolling. Just in general, this is not accounting for the shoot that we're gonna have to make. We're gonna do a magic missile. All right, all right. So I'm liking the angles on the baffles. They are definitely working out. I definitely want to redo the measurements on this to get just a little more precise. In fact, one of the things I need to account for is I'm fine with the sides being 3 inches. That means the front and back have to be a little bit bigger to account for the thickness of the cardboard. So one of the things I can do to get pretty precise here is pull out my micrometer or my calipers. Say we're looking at stupid meters. So this stuff is about 4. So if we go an extra, I know I'm mixing and matching. To me. So if I take 2 of these, they should be right about 8. Here's. Yep. So let's see what that ends up being. Like things to come in at a. And then that ends. Ah, I turned it off. That's not what I want. 3.13. What the heck is that? Although I do have a ruler that can measure things out like that. So I could go to 3.3 whatever inches with this stupid ruler. These are from my days of working in industrial manufacturing. So I want to account for that. All right, let's see. We're looking at, oh, it's only been an hour. Cool. So right now we've got the prototype build of this tower. I'm going to stick with, I'm going to get the measurements off of each of these pieces. We're going to replace the front and the back with slightly I just realized I said 3.3 inches extra. It's actually 0.3. Yeah. So we'll make the front and back with those. We've got to drill this out, so let's skip over this. While we have this, we're gonna make our bed. We're gonna make the piece that's gonna sit down on. So we know our dimensions. This is again prototyping for the mechanism. So we're gonna do. Want the main bed to be 6 inches. So, no, 6 inches this way. But we're back to the drawing. Just to make sure I don't screw it up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we've got 3 inches of. Yep. So we'll give it a full 9 inches just for you, Dwight. This side. So 9. Alright, so we've got 9 inches that way. Then we're going to end up at 3. And no attention to my stupid whatever I'm doing. Oh, it's not that one. Eh. Five sixteenths. 3 and 5/16. Yeah, I know. I'm dumb. So 3 and 5/16. So that should fit there perfectly. Fit about like that. Yeah. So that's, I'm actually starting to wonder if the 6 inches is too big. 6 inches is just extra. I mean, here's how we can tell before we cut. Let's see how far these dice are going on average. So that would bounce off. That would hit the trapdoor. Let's roll a few of these D6s. Some of them. Yeah, yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. We're good, we're good, we're good. It's all good. It's all good. So, nope, never mind. I was going to ask a Twitch question here on YouTube. You know, some streamers, when they do these things, they put the chat in an overlay, like over here on the side or something like that, so you can see it later. But this is on YouTube, and the live chat plays right alongside. So that's a moot question. I stream my role-playing games on Twitch, and then the VODs come up here at least 24, usually 48 hours later. But for our other content, crafting content, I'm hoping to be exclusive here. Sorry, I'm just catching some of the chat. I need to get it somewhere better for me to see it. Kind of out of the way right now. Anyway, yeah, I hope you guys, I saw somebody, I think it was Dwight, said something about liking to see the process. So I hope you guys are digging it. Yeah, see, one thing I don't like about that. Oh, snap. That can't. How does that work out? I think I screwed up my measurements from the get-go. Oh my. See, this is why it's prototyped. I knew I should get into the habit of drawing better, like, blueprints. It's 3 inches wide, or deep, but it's 4 inches wide because of this. So the whole dice tower itself is too narrow. Not a problem, not a problem. I can adjust for that. So we'll just switch to this piece, which is also 9. We'll cut this to 4. Jeez. Yeah, this is a great thing to see the process. I don't know, a lot of times I just have a single sketch like that. That's why I like graph paper. I usually do 4 squares to an inch. I don't do precise blueprints because I like to change things up while I'm working on it. For the purposes of testing this trapdoor out, this is going to work just fine. So I feel like I'm like talking in half sentences. But yeah, hopefully you're digging, seeing how the process works out. Seeing the good, the bad, the ugly, so to speak. We'll be doing a little more precise cuts here in a moment. So we are going to go 1. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this cardboard is actually just the superstructure for the overall tower. Everything is going to be clad in foam, foam board. And that's where we're going to get our unique textures. I'm actually thinking for the rolling surface here, we're probably going to have runes. I might do something with runes in the surface of the stones. And something I was thinking about literally just now is one of the things that having this trapdoor is going to create is it's going to make, no matter how finely I adjust it, there is going to be there's going to be a gap around where the door is. So it's going to be very obvious that the door is there. Now, the first time you roll dice, obviously you're going to know there's a door there. But I like it to look as innocuous as possible. So what I was just thinking about is when I do the final foam, instead of laying a single piece of foam, or we may still lay a single piece, I'm going to, after it's glued down, I'll cut the grid lines into it and dig deep channels and kind of round out so it looks like individual stone tiles placed. And that'll be true of what's on the trapdoor itself, so it'll hopefully allow that to blend in a little bit more. That'll make more sense when I actually get to that part of it. And yes, it's a dice tray, so I realize a grid is kind of pointless. Normally I don't do that, but it actually works with the Tomb of Annihilation, Tomb of the Nine Gods, and the overall style that we're going with here. We're actually going to have 24 visible grid stones. So I may just come up with a pattern or some variation of a pattern. So here's our primary rolling area. Originally I thought about putting the trapdoor further back, but I kind of like that it's going to be this section here because it's close enough to the end that when it drops down, the dice will actually roll out the other side. So before we get to making... Where did I put that piece that was wrong? I'm going to need this for the sides. And then I should be able to... I can use these. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. So I'm going to cut this... Go to my sharp... Oh, I did. I go here. We are going to cut out our trapdoor. Oh, we still have it flat. Coming in from both angles so that I can get kind of on that under edge. So we don't get that typical thing where you have your corners sticking. So I'm kind of actually pushing it in at an angle. I'm going to stick close with the straight edge. So sometimes I can cut these, especially with foam, I can cut these fairly straight freehand, but I just don't want to do that. I already went wandering. But, as I said, the cardboard will be covered up with foam that will cover our mistake. Our happy little accidents. Wow, that did not go through. But now that I have the things cut, I'm just gonna push through a little bit harder. Goes through on the back side. That's exactly what I did not want. All right, and actually, shouldn't matter, but now I know which side goes where. I'm actually going to do a little bit of, this is going to be a lovely sound, a little ASMR for you. Get some ASMR for free. Hey, Kenosis, what's up? Now I'm not Nathan, I'm not trying to hide the gap. Rather, I'm gonna hide it in plain sight, I guess. It's one of those things that the gap has to be there because you have to have the freedom of movement for this piece to actually see. Like right now, it's such a tight fit in there that even if a dice lands on here, it's not gonna be able to do what it needs to do, what I need it to do. So check something. File. To what are you saying smart move about there, Jeremy? Hiding the gap in plain sight, or... See, this is letting me see where we're sticking. It's actually less important for this piece to be clean fit. Like I said, everything's gonna be covered in foam. I want this to actually kind of be a loose fit in. Oh, marking the door's position. Yeah, I mean, technically it's a square cut, but there's always those slight imperfections. And, I mean, if I put it in here, technically it should fit in any direction. But I feel different sticking points. And here, it is where it's supposed to be. I'm almost tempted. Almost tempted. I have a piece of base wood that's probably close to these measurements, or I could get one for really cheap. I'm almost tempted to cut this core piece out of wood so it's an even more precise fit. Keep in mind, this is just the prototype. Oh, there we go. There we go. That's kind of what I wanted to see when I picked it up. There we go. See that? Okay, so this is where we're going to get funky. Flip this over. Now, I have some plastic tubing that I bought for another project, and I specifically bought some of the sizes so that they will fit inside one another. A lot of model makers will use these things for, you can see where that goes in. A lot of times they'll use that for like making miniature pistons and things like that. Yeah, you can get balsa for pretty cheap. That's what I'm saying. It might, for the more precise cuts, it might be worthwhile. The cardboard may work out perfectly fine, but it might be worth it for the balsa. One of the reasons I'm prototyping and taking a little extra care is I'm hoping for the finished project to be a raffle prize for a charity giveaway. Alright, so I'm thinking I'm going to use this handy tool. I've not used it on these before, so it may actually pinch it too much. But I have this, I don't even remember what it's called, Easy Cutter Ultimate. You can actually adjust this and cut it at angles. Wonder if you screw that down, box it in place. But at any rate, it's used for chopping through pieces of wood. Nice, precise cuts. Like that. I'm gonna try it with this plastic real quick. So I'm thinking. Yep, I have no idea where that went. And it pinched it quite a bit. Nope, I didn't just put that in my mouth and bite it to shape. Totally did. Which could ultimately compromise. Okay, so that's going to pinch it. I kind of figured it would, but I'd be remiss if I did not try it. Okay. So we'll do this instead. The old number. Okay. Not bad, not bad. Center there, but these are not necessary to be precise. So okay. what happened there. But to there'd be some kind of tool the model makers are using for these. It's a little better than what I'm just doing here, but set that aside there. So these are going to be the hinge receiver pieces. I don't know what they're called. We're just making up terminology here, folks. Irwin dovetail saw. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. So these pieces all right. I'm trying to think how I haven't actually figured that far yet. Okay, so I want the pivot point on this, the hinge point, to be pretty much right at the back. It's only going to go about, wow, I don't know if that'll work. All right, we'll just try it. We'll just try it. We'll do it live. I'm just putting a little dab of hot glue there. A little dab will do you. And it's a hot glue the door closed. Oh look, wisps. Don't like a good hot glue wisp. Reinforcing that a little bit more. Yeah, actually, the more I'm thinking about it, with the idea of wondering if this base design is flawed. It's supposed to be counterweighted. No, it might still work. Heck. No Snapple. Well, son of a... There's a flaw already. Well... Alright. No worries, no worries. Another little dabble on there. We'll just go with something a little different than the plastic piece. Still use them on the receivers here, but I'm gonna do something different for the something a little narrower. Yep, I got a whole tub full of tube rather full of bamboo skewers. So, yep, this is gonna do the trick. That's it for a minute and you're on up. Wood spring is just a semi-stiff bit of wood backing that snaps the door closed. I have to look into what a wood spring actually is. I have an idea for the counterweight, and it may just be part of figuring out that, whoa, that is not cured. Figuring out this design here. I am not a mechanical engineer, or an engineer of any kind, so whoa, that just shot like a rocket. So, yeah, I mean, I had an idea. You're right. I'd probably end up attaching it to the hinge itself. The counterweight is intended to hang down like an L shape. Still setting up yet. A thick bead of glue, so it needs a So I was thinking like an L-shaped counterweight. The trick with what you're talking about with like plastic springs and stuff is if you have anything that puts upward pressure on the trap door, the dice has to be able to overcome that pressure from the opposite side. And I don't know that a spring is gonna give enough to be able to simultaneously allow the trapdoor to fall open at about this angle and then come back into place. And that's where I think the counterweight, originally the counterweight idea came from. Still think it's possible. Just have to get through. I think I would have to do it as an L-shaped bracket. Slide the hinge forward just a little bit. Very basic. This is why we do test builds. Something like this. A wood spring would be too stiff. I'm saying use plastic like a blister pack. I'm still not convinced I fully get what you're saying with that. And I wonder if the plastic would wear out over time, the tension in it. So this has a slight latching effect just from the where it's touching. A lot of sideways play. I think I would have to cap these off. Yeah. More worried about this counterweight. Let me try. Wonder. Try something. I just grabbed a binder clip and one of these little metal pieces, and I'm just doing a really slapdash approach to gluing it in place. Just to play around with it. The idea is that we could put on some kind of weight on there that is going to counterweight. Oh, that. That's the whole point of the counterweight, counterbalance. That settle into the glue a little bit. Take a string that looks like a vine to pull that goes through a channel and attaches to the corner of the door. What? Now, see, I thought about manual reset, but that could potentially be a backup plan. But I really like the idea of its being automated. And now I got that extra weight on there that inside. See? This, just the weight of this is enough to kind of show. See how it's springing back? Before it would swing in and just kind of one or two and it would drop. What it's doing now is it's springing back in and it's holding a little more. Instead of sitting vertical like this, it's at a slight angle, right? So all we need is something on there that gives it weight that'll return it back to center. What do I have? Easily add weight. Sort of attaching a small chain or mount behind the pivot and just weight on it. This is not in your favor for. Well, I disagree because if there's, well, you might be right actually. You might. I can't say I completely disagree. I think of what I have. Something nearby here. I can attach to that. Tie it. Got a little length of chain here. These clips. Alright, now we're just starting to pull things apart. Don't even think that if this works, don't even think I won't leave this as the method. See, look at almost there. And now, so let me grab the other one. Come on. Hey, Carol. Jeremy, washers was the original idea. I'd have to know the weight. And then I can once I know the weight, I can figure out how many washers need to go on there. Why am I getting defeated by this little split ring? Split. Or now I will defeat you. Okay. So we'll clip this one on there. Snap my finger. Okay. See, this is where our fulcrum point might be off a little bit. See, it doesn't help that these things that I'm putting on there don't sit in one position like washers would. Actually, I think I have some washers nearby. I love that y'all are still just hanging out with me while I play around trying to conquer physics for the purpose of a counterweight. I almost wish I could do something with magnets, but I think any kind of magnet would be too much to release when the dice went across it. I think these are kind of in the vein, but they're not hitting enough. So we're close. I think Tomiko's saying the only reason you're hanging out with me is because you're drinking. I mean, look at that. Look at how close that is. See, I'm gonna do the thing where you push it beyond what you know is reasonable. I don't know what that's called. Putting extra weight on it to see. This should, if I put too much, what I know is too much weight on it, should prove if the center. Somehow I just undid that. That should help to prove out if the fulcrum point, what part of the problem. Alright, so flip that over. Yeah, I think it's just a hair too far back, maybe? Not how that would work if it were more forward. Or does it need to be washers that will rotate and hang at their lowest point? I mean, look at how close that is. Well, I mean, there's definitely enough to force the... It's just not quite snapping back up into position. Alright, so I think ultimately this is the conundrum. So I do have some weak magnets. But that would count on this snapping up enough that the magnet would also pull it in. Are they strong enough to cause it to come up? I really want to... do this with wood, where I can, because right now I've got this issue where this is catching weird, and I think if I can put a wood, you know, cut it out of wood and sand it more precisely, I won't have that issue. Some flex in this piece. Testing something with the... Ooh. 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 Okay. 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 See that? Right now, I think it's primarily... What's flexing back in? Hold on. Okay, I think we're almost there. What I did is I flexed this piece at an angle backwards. Pushing the counterweight, even though, because technically it has to be further back. So if I have this angled backwards, and then if I use some washers on there, yeah, this is, oh wow, perfect. Look at that. So I got this hoopty rig right here. I need to figure out how much the... Of course I moved it. I used to have a little plastic thing with some washers in it in this drawer, and it's not there now. All right, so what we have done is shown that, oh, and that's definitely enough for a single die. Look at that. It'll pass it. It's enough for it to weigh it down. Comes, oops, as it comes in. And then it will come down through this secondary chute. This is interesting. D4s don't have enough weight. A D6 will probably trigger it. I hadn't thought about that, that the volume, the dice. Okay. Hey, it's other Jeremy. Dice Tower 4, or Trapdoor 4 Dice Tower. You missed the first part of the build where plan is... Interesting that the D6 isn't enough. Oh. One of my good D20s too. I just lost my dice on the floor. All right, I will have to. Oh, there it is. I don't like just. Go. All right, I'll get it after the stream. All right, so our hoopty rig here. So we set the counterbalance back. Get enough weight in there. Maybe it requires. It could just. I like that it's not going to fire all the time. So. Another D20 on the floor. All right, so enough of that. All right, so here's what we've learned in this. How long have we been streaming? Almost 2 hours, which is about what I said I wanted to do. So we've learned that I need to be more precise in my measurements, for one. So this tower, I've got to measure it out to 4 inches across the face. And it's going to sit there. I know that I like the distances here. I like the angles of the baffles in the dice tower. Our counterweight with this basic trapdoor is going to work. And it feels almost too much right now. It's interesting that it automatically doesn't. I thought I was going to have to put some pieces of wood here to keep it from flipping up in the opposite direction. I might just have too much weight on it now, or it's put too far back. So I can play around with that. The point is that it comes back to center every time. Pressed up, right up against flush. And then we just see, you know, that maybe it's when more than one dice hits. The idea then, because I didn't get this far, is there's going to be a secondary tray here, that little swampy piece out the front, where additional dice that do fall into the trap come out. I want to have like a little skeleton coming up out of the water, some plants, that kind of thing. Still would be valid dice rolls. It'll be nice and flat. We're looking at, right now, for clearance with the counterweight. I want to see if my original estimate was accurate. I had it at 2. I might have to bump it up by another ½ inch. So the whole thing's going to sit up a little high, but that'll lend into the design. 2.5 inches. It's only going to end up being a total of like 8.5 inches high. So overall, I like what I got here. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to do I'm not going to actually do I'm not going to do any more physical work on it off stream. I said that this would all be done on stream, so I am going to stick with that. I will do some drawings for the new measurements on stream, and we're going to switch up to wood for the base piece. It'll still get a foam coating, or I've been meaning to use this stuff. Matt Smith, the Czar of Happiness, who does the Acquisitions Incorporated set pieces, turned me on to Celluclay. He used it in the Storm King's Thunder, the Castle in the Clouds build. This would allow me to put it directly onto the wood and add the textures. I don't know if I'd be able to do the symbols and stuff I wanted to do. So there's an idea. So now here's something to think about before I go, because it's been going right below me down here. I've had this little scroll with all the links to various shows and things on the channel. Let me switch over here. well, I'm going to leave that so you can see it. Patrons, at even the lowest level, which is $3 a month, if you support Mini Terrain Domain, check out patreon.com/Mini Terrain Domain, and you can see what all the different levels are. All of that money from support goes directly into improvements on the channel, things like this microphone and the accessories that go along with it for better quality streams. But one of the benefits that patrons get on the crafting side of things is when I do these detailed drawings with my measurements and all that stuff on it, I make those available to patrons at the lower levels. And that's something you could then take and use in your own builds. It'd make it a little bit easier than just trying to follow along. But I will share those drawings on the stream the next time I do one. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and sort of back to the drawing board, as they say. But it's been really fun having everybody here, hanging out in the stream. Everybody that stopped by, thank you so much. I'm looking at the chat real quick before we go. I see Heath Lawson says, does anybody know if you have to have Citadel paintbrushes to paint minis, or can you use fine hobby paintbrushes? I'm actually gonna show you. I haven't used these yet, but these, I've used some of these, just not these packages. These were sent to me by Plaid, who makes regular craft paints, and these are Folk Art, Soft Comfort Grip, Gold Tacklon, best for lettering and fine details. These are the best for fine details. There's 10 brushes in here of liner, round, spotter, flat, best for details, lines, outlining, lettering, continuous strokes. I also have this variety of brushes, of 10 brushes from Mod Podge, which is also a Plaid product. I have used a variety of these, and I do use them. I'm not seeing one of my painted minis readily available, but I have painted minis with these kind of brushes and with regular craft paints. So hopefully that answers your question. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to Mini Terrain Domain on YouTube here, because guess what? We are just a couple subscriptions away from the reveal of a big giveaway I'm going to be doing, where it's going to benefit people that are into D&D. I'm going to be giving away some pretty big prize packs. So when we hit 9,000, or when we're over 9,000, we're going to make that announcement as to what that'll be. And then it's going to be part of the drive towards 10,000 subscribers. We're at just under 9,000 right now. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at MTD_Jake. That's where you're going to find out when I'm going online, what I'm working with, sharing progress pics. In fact, I'm going to take a couple of pics of the work we did here tonight, and I will post them up on Twitter. And you can also check out the live stream D&D games. I have a Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grin playtest from Absolute Tabletop that I'm running part 2 of tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Mini Terrain Domain, along with our regular Sunday, Monday, and Thursday games. Thank you, everybody who stopped in to join me while I blathered on and tested the limits of physics and avoided cutting myself and only burned myself once. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now. I'm going to end it the same way I end every stream, and you can say it with me if you want. Make it dead.